Jake Mitchell stepped off the transport ship and looked up at the massive building in front of him. Zenith Academy stretched high into the purple sky of Kepler 7, its walls made of some kind of crystal that seemed to glow from within. Flying. Platforms carried students between floating classroom pods that hung in the air like soap bubbles. Jake had never seen anything like it. "Welcome to Zenith Academy," said a voice behind him. Jake turned to see a tall, thin creature with blue skin and 4 arms. "I am Counselor Vex. You must be the human exchange student." Jake nodded and picked up his single bag. "That's me, Jake Mitchell from Earth." Counselor Vex's large black eyes blinked slowly. "Yes, Earth. The Death World. How interesting." The way he said it made Jake feel like some kind of dangerous animal in a zoo. As they walked through the Academy's main hall, Jake noticed how other students stared at him. A group of crystal-like beings made musical sounds that might have been talking. Flying creatures with rainbow wings whispered to each other while pointing in his direction. Even the robot-looking student seemed to study him with extra interest. "Why is everyone looking at me like that?" Jake asked. "Humans are quite rare in our educational system," Counselor Vex explained. "Most species consider your world too dangerous to visit. The fact that you evolved there makes you something of curiosity." Jake frowned. Dangerous? Earth seemed pretty normal to him. Sure, there were storms and earthquakes and wild animals, but every planet had stuff like that, right? They entered a classroom where about 20 students sat in chairs that seemed designed for different body types. Some chairs hung from the ceiling, others were filled with water, and a few looked like small caves. Jake was shown to a regular chair that looked almost human-made. "Class, we have a new student joining us today," announced the teacher, a slug-like creature with multiple eye stalks. "This is Jake Mitchell from Earth. Jake, please tell us about your homeworld." Jake stood up, feeling nervous as dozens of alien eyes focused on him. "Well, Earth is the 3rd planet from our sun. We have oceans and continents, and about 8 billion humans live there. We have cities and farms and forests. It's pretty nice, actually." One student raised a tentacle. "Is it true that your planet has predators that hunt in packs?" "You mean like wolves?" Jake asked. "Yeah, but they mostly stay away from people." Musical sounds of shock came from the crystal students. The flying creatures fluttered their wings rapidly. Another student, this one looking like a walking tree, asked, "What about the atmospheric storms that can destroy entire settlements?" Jake thought for a moment. "Oh, you mean hurricanes and tornadoes?" "Yeah, we get those sometimes. People usually just go inside or move away from them." "Just go inside?" squeaked a small furry creature. "But the wind speeds can exceed 200 kilometers per hour. "Well, yeah, that's why we build strong houses," Jake said, confused by their shocked reactions. The teacher's eye stalks waved excitedly. "Tell us about your gravity. Earth has a gravity rating of 9.8 meters per second squared, correct? That's nearly twice what most civilized worlds consider safe." Jake shrugged. "I guess. I never really thought about it. That's just normal for us." A student that looked like a giant mantis clicked its mandibles. "How do you move under such crushing force? Your bones must be incredibly dense." "Our bones are pretty strong, I suppose," Jake said. He was starting to realize that maybe Earth was different from other planets in ways he'd never considered. The questions kept coming. They wanted to know about Earth's weather, its animals, its diseases, and even its plants. When Jake mentioned that some mushrooms and berries could kill you if you ate them, several students actually moved their chairs further away from him. "Is it true," asked a student with scales and gills, "that humans can survive without water for several days?" "Some people can go about 3 days, maybe a week if they're really tough," Jake answered. Gasps filled the room. The guild student looked faint. "My species begins to die after 6 hours without moisture." Jake was beginning to understand why everyone seemed so interested in him. Apparently, the things that seemed normal on Earth were pretty extreme compared to the rest of the galaxy. After class, a few brave students approached him. The first was a creature that looked like it was made of living crystal, with light moving through its body in patterns. "I am Zeph," it said, its voice sounding like wind chimes. "I am curious about your species' sensory capabilities. What wavelengths of light can you perceive? Jake scratched his head. I'm not really sure about the technical stuff. I can see colors from red to purple, I guess. Zeph's internal light pulsed rapidly. You can see across nearly the entire visible spectrum. Most species can only perceive a small portion. Next was a delicate-looking being with translucent skin and large, gentle eyes. I'm Lyra, she said, her voice seeming to come from inside Jake's head. I'm telepathic, but I cannot read your thoughts at all. Your mind feels shielded somehow. Sorry, Jake said. I don't think humans are telepathic, is that weird? Very, Lyra admitted. Most species have at least some psychic sensitivity. Your mental barriers are incredibly strong. The last student to approach was built like a tank with thick armor plating and massive arms. I am Core, he rumbled in a deep voice. My people come from a high-gravity world, but even we cannot match human physical capabilities. Your muscle density is remarkable. Jake felt embarrassed. I'm not even that strong compared to other humans, I'm just average. This seemed to disturb Core even more. Average, he repeated slowly. As Jake walked to his dormitory that evening, he began to realize that his first day at Zenith Academy had been very different from what he'd expected. He'd thought he would be the weird alien kid trying to fit in. Instead, it seemed like everyone else thought he was some kind of super being just for being normal. He looked up at the strange purple sky and the 2 moons hanging above the academy. Maybe Earth really was different. Maybe humans were different. But if that was true, why hadn't anyone told him before sending him here? Jake fell asleep that night wondering what other surprises waited for him at Zenith Academy, and what his fellow students would think when they learned more about what humans could really do. 3 weeks had passed since Jake's first day at Zenith Academy, and things were getting stranger every day. In his math class, Professor Quinn had given the students a puzzle about calculating trajectories in 3-dimensional space. While his classmates struggled with their calculating devices, Jake worked it out in his head and finished in 5 minutes. Impossible, whispered Zeph, his crystal body flickering with confused light patterns. That problem should take at least an hour, with proper equipment. Jake just shrugged. It's not that hard. You just have to picture it in your mind and work backwards from where you want to end up. Professor Quinn, a floating jellyfish-like creature, drifted over to check Jake's work. All 6 of his eyes widened when he saw the correct answer. Mr. Mitchell, how did you solve this so quickly? I just imagined throwing a ball and figured out the math, Jake explained. The professor's tentacles quivered. You can perform complex spatial calculations using only mental visualization, without any technological assistance? Can't everyone do that? Jake asked, looking around at his classmates' shocked faces. During lunch, Jake sat with his new friends at their usual table. Lyra picked at her bowl of glowing soup while Core consumed what looked like metal pellets. Zeph absorbed light from a special lamp instead of eating. Jake, Lyra said carefully, we have been discussing your abilities. The things you do seem impossible to most species. What do you mean? Jake asked, taking a bite of his sandwich. The Academy had managed to replicate human food pretty well. Core leaned forward, his armor scraping against the table. Yesterday in physical education, you lifted weights that would crush most students here. You barely seemed to notice the effort. But I was holding back, Jake protested. I didn't want to show off or break anything. Holding back? Zeph's light pulsed rapidly. You lifted 3 times your body weight while holding back? Jake nodded. My gym teacher back on Earth always said I was pretty weak compared to the football team. His friends exchanged worried glances. Lyra touched his hand gently. Jake, I think you do not understand how different humans are from the rest of us. That afternoon, they had their first combat simulation class. Commander Hayes, a bird-like Raptorian with sharp talons and keen yellow eyes, explained the exercise. Today we will practice basic defensive maneuvers, she announced to the class. You will work in pairs to practice avoiding and blocking attacks. Remember, this is about protection, not aggression. Jake was paired with a student named Vrex, who looked like a walking lizard with thick scales. Vrex was considered one of the tougher students in their year. Do not worry, human. Vrex hissed. I will be gentle with you. I know your species is fragile. The simulation began, and Vrex launched what he probably thought was a careful attack. To Jake, it looked like slow motion. He stepped aside easily, then gently tapped Vrex's shoulder to indicate a successful block. Vrex stumbled and fell down. He looked up at Jake with wide, confused eyes. How did you move so fast, and how are you so strong? Commander Hayes had been watching. She flew over on her powerful wings and landed next to them. Mr. Mitchell, please demonstrate that movement again. Jake repeated the simple sidestep and gentle tap. Commander Hayes's feathers ruffled with excitement. Class observe, she called, out. Mr. Mitchell just demonstrated combat reflexes that exceed military standards for most species, and he claims this is normal for humans. Jake felt uncomfortable with all the attention. It's really not a big deal, anyone could do that. No, Commander Hayes said firmly. They could not. Mr. Mitchell, I need to speak with you after class. The rest of the lesson was awkward. Every time Jake was paired with someone, the same thing happened. His partners couldn't keep up with his movements, and even his gentlest touches seemed to surprise them with their strength. After class, Commander Hayes led Jake to her private office. The walls were covered with weapons and military awards from across the galaxy. Sit down, Mr. Mitchell, she said, perching on a specially designed chair. We need to talk about your abilities. Jake sat nervously. Am I in trouble? I was trying to be careful. No, you are not in trouble, but I think you need to understand something important. Commander Hayes pulled out a datapad and showed him some charts. These are physical capability measurements for different species across the galaxy. She pointed to various lines on the graph. Thraxians like your friend Kor are considered among the strongest species. Etherians like Lyra are known for their mental abilities. Raptorians like myself have excellent reflexes and coordination. Jake studied the chart. Okay, where do humans fit? Commander Hayes added a new line to the graph. It went far beyond all the others. This is based on your performance today and data from your homeworld. Jake stared at the chart. That can't be right. I am afraid it is. Jake, humans are not just different from other species. You are what we call an apex species. Your world created you to be survivors, fighters, and problem solvers in ways that most of the galaxy cannot match. Jake felt dizzy. But I'm just a regular guy. I'm not even the strongest or smartest person in my class back home. That is what makes this so remarkable, Commander Hayes said softly. If you are average for your species, then humans are far more capable than anyone in the galaxy realized. Over the following days, news began to spread through the academy about the human students' abilities. Some students were fascinated and wanted to learn more about Earth. Others seemed nervous and avoided Jake in the hallways. Jake found himself caught between two worlds. He wanted to fit in and make friends, but everything he did seemed to remind everyone that he was different. When he helped carry heavy equipment for a science project, students gasped at his strength. When he solved complex problems quickly, teachers questioned whether he was somehow cheating. The hardest part was that Jake didn't feel special at all. He missed his family, struggled with some of his classes, and just wanted to be a normal student. But apparently normal for a human was extraordinary for everyone else. One evening, as Jake sat in his dorm room doing homework, his communication device chimed with a message from home. It was from his little sister, Amy. Hey, big brother. How's alien school? Are you the coolest kid there yet? Jake smiled sadly as he typed back. It's complicated, Amy. Turns out humans are weird in ways I never knew about. Of course we're weird, she replied. That's what makes us awesome. Just be yourself, and they'll figure it out. Jake looked out his window at the strange purple sky and the floating platforms of students moving between buildings. Maybe Amy was right. Maybe being different wasn't something to hide from. But as he watched the news feeds showing reports of conflict in distant star systems, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that his time at Zenith Academy was about to become much more complicated than just being the weird human kid in class. Jake woke up to sirens blaring throughout the academy. Red lights flashed in his dormitory window, and his communication device was buzzing with emergency messages. He quickly got dressed and ran to the main hall where other students were gathering. The big screen in the center of the hall showed Principal Thane, a wise-looking being with tentacles instead of hair. His usually calm face looked worried. "Students and faculty of Zenith Academy," Principal Thane announced, "we have received troubling news from the Galactic Council. The Hegemony crisis has reached our sector." Jake had heard whispers about the Hegemony crisis over the past few weeks. It was some kind of war brewing between different groups of planets, but he hadn't paid much attention to it. "The Korthak Empire has formed an alliance with several aggressive species," the principal continued. "They are moving through star systems, forcing planets to join their empire or face destruction. Long-range sensors show a large fleet heading toward our system." Panic spread through the crowd of students. The crystal beings began making high-pitched musical sounds of distress. Flying students crashed into each other as they tried to flutter away. Even the large armored students like Kor looked frightened. Jake found his friends near the back of the hall. Lyra's face was pale, and her usual gentle smile was gone. "Jake, I can feel everyone's fear. It's overwhelming," she said, pressing her hands to her temples. Zeph's internal lights were flashing in chaotic patterns. "My homeworld has no military. We have never needed one before. If the Korthak come to our system, we have no way to fight back." Kor's thick armor was making grinding sounds as he shifted nervously. "The Thraxians have warriors, but we are a peaceful people now. We gave up war centuries ago. Our weapons are old and weak." Jake looked around at all the terrified faces. These species had grown up in a galaxy where most conflicts were solved through talking and trading. The idea of real war was completely foreign to them. "How long until they get here?" Jake asked. "The fleet should arrive in approximately 6 hours, Principal Thane announced. "Emergency evacuation ships have been called, but they will not reach us for at least 8 hours. We must prepare to shelter in place until help arrives." Commander Hayes flew over to where Jake and his friends were standing. Her sharp eyes looked even more intense than usual. "Students, we need to discuss emergency procedures," she said. "Follow me to the secure classroom." They walked quickly through the hallways, passing other groups of students who were crying or huddling together in fear. Jake noticed that many of them looked at him as they passed, but their expressions were different now. Instead of curiosity about the strange human, they looked almost hopeful. In the classroom, Commander Hayes activated a holographic display showing the approaching enemy fleet. 3 massive ships shaped like metal spears led a group of smaller vessels. "These are Korthak dreadnoughts," she explained. "Each one carries enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The smaller ships are troop transports and fighters." Lyra raised her hand. "What do they want with our academy?" "We are just students and teachers." Commander Hayes's feathers ruffled grimly. "The Korthak believe that species who cannot defend themselves should be enslaved. They see educational institutions like ours as symbols of weakness. They will either force everyone here to serve their empire or—" She didn't finish the sentence. "How many ships are coming?" Jake asked. 43 ships total. The Academy's defensive systems consist of basic shields and 2 small patrol craft. We are completely outmatched." Jake studied the display showing the enemy fleet. Something about the numbers bothered him, but he couldn't figure out what. "What about the other planets in this system?" he asked. "Don't they have any defenses?" "Kepler 7 is a peaceful world," Commander Hayes replied. "The local government has a few police ships, but nothing designed for military combat. Most species in this sector have not engaged in warfare for hundreds of years." Jake found this hard to believe. What happens if someone attacks them? They surrender or call for help from the Galactic Council. But the Council's military forces are far away and cannot arrive in time. As they talked, more emergency messages came through. The Korthak fleet was moving faster than expected. They would arrive in 4 hours instead of 6. "We need to start moving students to the deepest parts of the academy," Commander Hayes said. "The lower levels have stronger shielding." Jake watched his friends and classmates file out of the room toward the emergency shelters. Their fear was obvious in every movement. Zeph's lights were barely glowing. Lyra was struggling to block out the telepathic waves of terror from hundreds of students. Even Kor, who came from a warrior species, looked defeated. "Commander Hayes," Jake said, staying behind as the others left. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. Back on Earth, when someone threatens a school full of kids, what usually happens?" Commander Hayes tilted her head, confused by the question. "I am not familiar with Earth's protocols for such situations." Jake sat down heavily in one of the chairs. "People fight back, parents, police, military, sometimes even teachers. Everyone comes together to protect the children, no matter what it costs. That sounds very noble, but we do not have the capability to fight back against such a force." "What if you did?" Jake asked quietly. Commander Hayes studied him carefully. "What do you mean?" "I mean, what if there was someone here who could fight back? Someone from a species that knows how to handle this kind of situation?" "Jake, I know humans are more capable than most species, but you are one student. Even with your abilities, you cannot face an entire fleet." Jake stood up and walked to the window. In the distance, he could see the stars, and somewhere among them, the enemy fleet was getting closer. "Commander, can I send a message to Earth?" "Why would you want to do that? Your planet is too far away to help." "Maybe," Jake said. "But I think there are some things about humans that even you don't know yet." Commander Hayes activated her communication device. "You have 5 minutes before we need to join the others in the shelter." Jake's fingers moved quickly over the controls, sending an encrypted message toward Earth. As he worked, he thought about his sister Amy's words. "Just be yourself and they'll figure it out." Maybe it was time for the galaxy to figure out what humans really were. The message sent successfully, just as Commander Hayes announced it was time to go. As they walked toward the emergency shelters, Jake could hear the fear in every voice around him. But for the first time since arriving at Zenith Academy, Jake wasn't worried about fitting in or being different. He was thinking about something else entirely. What would happen when 43 enemy ships met one very calm human boy who had finally stopped holding back? The emergency shelter deep beneath Zenith Academy was packed with frightened students and teachers. The walls were thick metal, and the air felt heavy and stuffy. Everyone sat quietly, listening to the updates coming through the communication system. "Enemy fleet now 2 hours away," announced Principal Thane's voice. "All students remain in designated safe areas." Jake sat with his friends in a corner of the shelter. Around them, other species were dealing with fear in different ways. The crystal beings had dimmed their lights to almost nothing. The flying students had folded their wings tightly against their bodies. Some of the smaller creatures were making soft crying sounds. Lyra was holding her head in her hands. "The telepathic noise is terrible," she whispered. "Everyone is so scared I can barely think." Kor was checking his thick armor plates over and over, even though there was nothing wrong with them. "If they break through the shields, we will not be able to fight. My people forgot how to make real weapons long ago." Zeph's voice sounded like broken music. "This is how our civilization ends. We became so peaceful that we forgot how to protect ourselves." Jake listened to his friends and looked around at all the other students. These were good people from dozens of different worlds. They had come here to learn and make friends across species. None of them deserved what was about to happen. The communication system crackled again. "This is Commander Hayes speaking from the control room. The Korthak fleet has entered our system. They are demanding immediate surrender of all Academy personnel." A new voice came through the speakers, harsh and threatening. "Attention, creatures of Zenith Academy. You have 1 hour to surrender completely. Anyone who resists will be eliminated. Your pathetic defenses cannot stop us." The shelter filled with sounds of despair. Some students began crying openly. Others tried to comfort each other, but their own fear made it hard to help anyone else. Jake stood up slowly. His friends looked at him with confusion. "Where are you going?" Lyra asked. "I need to do something," Jake said calmly. "Jake, you cannot leave the shelter," Kor protested. "It is not safe." "Stay here with the others," Jake told them. "I'll be back soon." Jake walked to the shelter door where 2 teachers were standing guard. They tried to stop him, but he simply moved past them. His reflexes were too fast for them to react in time. He made his way through the empty hallways of the academy. Emergency lights cast strange shadows on the walls. The building felt like a ghost town, with everyone hiding in the shelters. Jake reached the main communications center where Commander Hayes and Principal Thane were monitoring the approaching fleet. They looked up in shock when he entered. "Mr. Mitchell, you should be in the shelter," Principal Thane said. "I know," Jake replied, "but I need to use your communication system." Commander Hayes stepped forward. "Jake, this is not the time for personal messages. We are trying to coordinate with what little defense we have." "I'm not sending a personal message," Jake said, walking calmly to the main control panel. "I'm going to talk to the Korthak fleet." Both adults stared at him in horror. "Absolutely not," Commander Hayes said. "You could make the situation worse." Jake's hands were already working on the controls. His movements were quick and precise, much faster than either alien could follow. In seconds, he had opened a direct channel to the enemy fleet. "What are you doing?" Principal Thane demanded, reaching for the emergency shutdown. Jake gently but firmly moved him away from the controls. To the principal, it felt like being pushed by a machine. Jake's strength was impossible to resist. "This is Jake Mitchell, representing Earth and the Human Colonial Defense Force," Jake said into the communication system. His voice was steady and calm, completely different from the panic around him. The response from the Korthak fleet came quickly, filled with harsh laughter. "A human child thinks he can negotiate with us? How amusing. We will enjoy adding your primitive species to our slave collection." Commander Hayes tried again to reach the controls, but Jake blocked her without even looking in her direction. His attention was focused entirely on the communication channel. "You have 30 seconds to turn your ships around and leave this system," Jake continued in the same calm voice. More laughter came from the Korthak. "Or what, little human? You will throw rocks at our dreadnoughts?" Jake touched a few more controls. "I'm uploading data about my species to your systems now. I suggest you review the files labeled Human Military History and Earth Defense Protocols. You now have 20 seconds. "Jake, what are you doing?" Commander Hayes whispered, staring at him with growing alarm. The laughter from the Korthak fleet stopped. There was silence for several moments as they processed the uploaded information. Jake continued working at the controls with the same calm efficiency. Principal Thane and Commander Hayes watched in fascination and horror as the human student accessed systems they didn't even know existed in their communication array. 15 seconds, Jake announced. "This data cannot be accurate," came a different voice from the Korthak fleet, sounding less confident than before. "No species could survive the conditions described on this world." 10 seconds, Jake said. "These weapon specifications must be fabricated," another Korthak voice said. But there was worry in the tone now. Jake finally turned away from the controls and looked at Commander Hayes and Principal Thane. The change in his expression was startling. The confused, eager-to-please student they knew was gone. In his place stood someone who looked like he had been born for exactly this moment. 5 seconds, Jake said, his eyes never leaving theirs. The communication channel erupted with frantic chatter from the Korthak fleet. Multiple voices were talking at once, and Jake could hear the fear creeping into their words. "Commander, these files show nuclear weapons usage in warfare. They have detailed records of biological warfare programs. The tactical manuals describe planet-wide military campaigns. This cannot be one species' history. No one could survive developing such capabilities." Jake smiled. But it wasn't the friendly smile his classmates were used to. It was the smile of someone who knew exactly what was about to happen. "Time's up," he said softly. The response from the Korthak fleet was immediate and desperate. "Wait, we are reviewing the data. We may have made an error about this system's strategic value." Jake leaned back into the communication system. "No error. You found exactly what you were looking for. The question is, are you prepared for what happens next?" Commander Hayes grabbed Jake's arm, though her grip felt weak compared to his strength. "Jake, what did you send them?" Jake looked at her with those same calm, dangerous eyes. "The truth, Commander. I sent them the truth about what humans really are." The communication channel from the Korthak fleet was silent for a full minute. Commander Hayes and Principal Thane watched Jake as he stood calmly at the controls, waiting. His relaxed posture was more frightening than any anger they had ever seen. Finally, a new voice came through the speakers. This one sounded older and more careful than the others. Human designation Jake Mitchell, the voice said slowly. I am Fleet Commander Vrak of the Korthak Empire. We have finished reviewing your data files. And? Jake asked simply. The information you provided shows military conflicts spanning your entire recorded history, wars involving billions of casualties, weapons capable of destroying entire planets, tactical strategies that would be considered impossible by galactic standards. Jake nodded, even though the aliens couldn't see him. That's correct. But this is presented as historical fact, not theoretical capability. Also correct. There was another long pause. When Commander Vrak spoke again, his voice was much quieter. How many humans are currently stationed in this system? Jake smiled that dangerous smile again. That's classified information, Commander. We detected only one human life sign at the Academy. Your sensors are designed to detect known galactic species, Jake replied. They wouldn't necessarily pick up human signatures if we didn't want them to. Principal Thane grabbed Jake's shoulder. Jake, you are bluffing. You are the only human here. Jake looked at him with those calm, cold eyes. Am I? His personal communication device chimed softly. Jake glanced at it and his smile grew wider. Ah, perfect timing. He activated a new channel on the main communication system. This is Student Observer Jake Mitchell reporting to Fleet Command. A crisp, professional voice answered immediately. This is Admiral Carter aboard the UES Retribution. We received your emergency signal, Jake. What's your status? Commander Hayes felt her legs go weak. Principal Thane's tentacles started shaking. 43 hostile ships threatening the Academy, Jake reported in a calm, military tone. Korthak Empire. They've been made aware of human capabilities but haven't withdrawn yet. Understood. We have 18 ships in position. Do you need immediate extraction? Jake looked at the two aliens beside him. Negative, Admiral, I'm safe, but these people need protection. Copy that. Initiating Phase 2 protocols. The Korthak fleet's communication channel erupted in panic. Commander, we're detecting massive energy signatures. Ships are appearing out of nowhere. Impossible, Fleet Commander Vrak's voice snapped. Our sensors would have detected any approaching vessels. Jake spoke into both channels at once. Commander, Vrak, meet the Human Colonial Defense Force. We've been watching your empire's expansion for some time now. How many ships? Commander Vrak demanded. Enough, Jake replied simply. Admiral Carter's voice came through clearly. Attention Korthak vessels. This is Admiral Carter of the Human Defense Fleet. You are trespassing in a protected system. You have 2 minutes to begin withdrawal, or we will interpret your presence as an act of war. This is a trick, one of the Korthak voices protested. No fleet could have approached without detection. Jake looked at Commander Hayes. Would you like to explain stealth technology to them, or should I? Commander Hayes was staring at him, like she had never seen him before. Jake, who are you really? I'm exactly who I said I was, Jake replied. A student from Earth. But I'm also a military observer. Every human in the exchange program is. Principal Thane's voice was barely a whisper. The exchange program is a spy operation. Intelligence gathering, Jake corrected gently. We needed to understand galactic society before making contact. Earth doesn't like surprises. The Korthak fleet was in chaos now. Multiple voices were shouting over each other. 18 human ships just appeared on our sensors. Where did they come from? Energy readings are off the charts. Commander, these vessels are unlike anything in our database. Fleet Commander Vrak's voice cut through the noise. Human Admiral, we were not aware this system was under Earth's protection. Now you are, Admiral Carter replied coldly. Begin your withdrawal immediately. We will need to consult with High Command about this development. Jake leaned into the communication system. Commander Vrak, let me save you some time. Tell your High Command that humanity has been observing the galaxy for 30 years. We know about every world you've conquered, every species you've enslaved, and every war crime you've committed. What are you saying? I'm saying that Earth has been deciding whether your empire represents a threat to galactic peace. Today, you helped us make that decision. Admiral Carter's voice was sharp and final. Korthak Fleet, you now have 60 seconds to begin withdrawal. Any ship remaining in this system after that time will be considered hostile. Commander Hayes found her voice. Jake, how long have humans been watching us? Since before I was born, Jake admitted. Earth made contact with the galactic community decades ago, but we decided to study everyone first. Humans don't trust easily. And the exchange program? Every human student is also gathering information about different species and their capabilities. We needed to understand what we were dealing with. The Korthak communications were frantic now. All ships begin immediate withdrawal. Do not engage the human vessels. But, Commander, we outnumber them more than 2 to 1. Have you read their military history? Fleet Commander Vrak roared. These creatures turned their own planet into a weapon. They fought wars that would destroy most civilizations, and they did it for practice. Principal Thane sat down heavily. The peaceful exchange student was actually a military intelligence officer. Jake shook his head. I really am just a student, Principal Thane. But humans don't separate military and civilian training the way other species do. Every human is taught to be a soldier if necessary. On the main screen, they could see the Korthak fleet beginning to turn away from Kepler-7. The massive dreadnoughts that had seemed so threatening an hour ago now looked like they were running away. Admiral Carter, this is Jake. Hostile fleet is withdrawing. Confirmed. Nice work, Jake. Your parents will be proud. Thanks, Admiral. Will you be staying in the system? For a while. I think it's time the galaxy met humanity officially. Jake turned off the military channel and looked at his 2 teachers who were still staring at him in shock. I should probably get back to the shelter, he said, sounding like a normal student again. My friends are worried about me. As they walked back through the academy halls, Commander Hayes finally spoke. Jake, what happens now? Now Earth begins Phase 3, Jake replied. Official contact with the galactic community. No more hiding. And you? Jake shrugged, that familiar confused expression returning to his face. I guess I go back to being a regular student, though I suppose everyone's going to treat me differently now. When they reached the shelter, Jake opened the doors to find hundreds of students and teachers staring at him. News of what had happened had already spread through the Academy's communication system. Zeph's lights pulsed in amazement. Jake, you saved us all. Lyra stepped forward, her telepathic abilities finally picking up Jake's true thoughts. You were never really just a student, were you? Jake looked at all the faces around him, then smiled his old friendly smile. I'm still the same person I always was. I just stopped hiding what that meant. Kor's armor clanked as he bowed formally. On behalf of my people, I thank you. Don't thank me, Jake said. Thank Earth, and get ready because everything is about to change. As news of humanity's true nature spread across the galaxy, Jake Mitchell returned to his classes at Zenith Academy. But now, instead of being the strange exchange student from me, the Deathworld, he was the representative of the most dangerous species the galaxy had ever encountered. And for the first time since arriving at the Academy, that felt perfectly normal.